Time for yet another season preview and prediction video for the college football 2025 season. Today we are covering the Clemson Tigers. Clemson last year, they ended up going 10-3. No, I'm sorry, they went 10-4. They won the ACC title in a thrilling game against SMU, and then they lost in the first round to Texas by a score of 38-24. Now, Clemson this year, they do still have a lot of talent, even though they did lose a few pieces. The big key piece for Clemson this year is going to be Cade Klubnik. He's returning for his senior year. This is his last year here. He had a better season than most people expected last year. A lot of people didn't really expect a lot out of him, but he gave a lot. Clemson's also expected to win the ACC this year in what is expected to be a not so great year for the ACC. So Clemson has a lot of expectations this year. They're expected to make the playoffs, expected to win the ACC. Dabo Swinney returns as head coach for, I want to say, his 14th or 15th season. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But Clemson has a lot of expectations this year. Can they follow up on them? I think they could follow up on them. I definitely think Clemson could win the ACC, but they have to be sure that everything falls into place with this roster. And especially since most of this roster is going to be gone next year, there's a lot of people that are seniors this year. Clemson's got to win. Let's look into the schedule. One of your tougher opponents actually comes in the first week of the season, because the first Saturday of the season in prime time in your own home stadium, you go up against the LSU Tigers. Now, LSU had the number one not recruiting class. They did recruit near the top. But what I meant to say was that they had the best transfer portal class. They ranked number one. Brian Kelly is good at recruiting. He's a good in-game coach as well. But in big situations, can he get it done? And another thing that's relevant in this one, too, against Power 4/Power 5 opponents since 2018, LSU has not won a season opener against the Power 4 opponent since 2018. The last time they won a season opener against a Power 4 opponent was 2018 when they beat Miami. They faced a Group of 5 team in Week 1, 2019. Then in 2020, they lost to Mississippi State in Week 1. Then in 2021, they lost to UCLA in Week 1. 2022 and 2023, in both years, they lost to Florida State in Week 1. And then, of course, last year they lost to USC in Week 1. I might have overlooked that if this game were in Baton Rouge, but since this game is in Clemson, I have to keep it going. I think LSU loses this one, give the game to Clemson. But then after that, you face Troy in your home stadium. I think you beat them there. Week 3, Clemson is at Georgia Tech. I still think you win that one. Georgia Tech, they're inconsistent. They've literally gone 7-6 each year under Brent Key, and I wouldn't trust them to win against a big ACC opponent other than Miami. Wink, wink. So I think Clemson wins that one. And then you're home against Syracuse. I think you win that one. And that leads you to your first bye week. So going into your first bye week, I think Clemson is 4-0. Of course, the big signature one, the big question mark, is Week 1 against LSU. Other than that, I think you win them with 100% certainty. But then after that, you are at North Carolina. Now, North Carolina, talent-wise, not so much. They were kind of held back last year by Mack Brown. Mack Brown was great in his prime, but he fell off big time. He got fired near the end of the season. They bring in Bill Belichick, who led the Patriots to 6 Super Bowls. Now, the college game is different from the NFL game. So that's a question mark with Belichick, is the adjustment from the NFL game to the college game. But I have no doubts about Belichick's ability to coach in-game wise. Depends on really how he manages the roster, is what's going to be how North Carolina does in year 1 under Belichick. But I If I were a North Carolina fan, I would have confidence in Belichick. This game is at North Carolina, and I think North Carolina pulls the upset over Clemson in Week 6. Again, I think Clemson's more talented than North Carolina, but I think with it being at home and Belichick being a great in-game coach, that North Carolina gets the win. I don't think North Carolina wins the ACC necessarily, nor do I even think North Carolina's better, but I think circumstance-wise, they get the win. Following that, with your second consecutive road game at Boston College, I think you win this one. Boston College, nobody really expects a lot out of them. Then you're home against SMU. I do expect a few steps back from SMU this year. They probably don't fall off a cliff. In fact, I still think they probably win at least 9 games, SMU. But I wouldn't expect them to win the ACC. And being that it's home for Clemson, I think Clemson gets the win. And that brings you to your second bye week. Sorry about that. But I think you, through going into your second bye week, will have played 7 games, and I think you're 6-1 at that point, with your lone loss being at North Carolina. After that, you come home, you play Duke. Duke might be one of the worst Power 4 teams this year, so I think you win that one. Home against Florida State. Florida State, I think, improves this year, but that's setting the bar really low considering that Florida State went 2-10 last year. I do think they win probably around 7 or 6 games. I don't think one of them is against Clemson. I think Clemson gets the win here. Then you have at Louisville. I think Louisville's going to be one of the ACC teams that did okay, but takes a step back. I think you win that one, and that completes your ACC slate. And so in your ACC slate, I actually think you go 7-1 with your low loss in the ACC being to North Carolina, but you're not done with your season yet, because second to last week of the regular season, you play home against Furman, and I think you win that one. But then, in your last week of the season, this one, if LSU isn't your toughest opponent, this team is South Carolina. Last year you played South Carolina, and you lost to them in your own home stadium. This time you have to go to South Carolina. South Carolina keeps most of their pieces other than Rocket Sanders. Lenore Sellers is still there. And I think South Carolina gets the win over you. I think South Carolina might be one of the SEC teams that a lot of people aren't really giving a lot of looks to make the playoffs, that actually has one of the, I would say, the 5 teams that have the biggest odds of making the playoff this year would be obviously Texas and Georgia, then Alabama, then South Carolina, and then LSU. So I think you actually take the loss here to South Carolina in the last week of the season, and I think you in total go 10-2 with your losses being on the road against North Carolina and on the road against South Carolina. Should that be enough to get you in the ACC title game? Absolutely, because you'll be 7-1 in the ACC. I don't know who else would go 7-1 in the ACC, and I think there's a big possibility that you beat not South Carolina. Well, you probably could beat South Carolina, but there is probably a possibility that you beat North Carolina. Clemson could. There's an outside shot of Clemson going 12-0. I don't want to pick them to go 12-0, but I think they're going 10-2. It's possible you go 11-1. I think it's also possible you go 9-3 by losing to North Carolina and South Carolina, but also losing in week 1 to LSU. I picked Clemson simply because I don't know if I can trust LSU in a Power 4 game in week 1. But LSU could beat you. But I have you going 10-2 with losses to North Carolina and South Carolina. That should be enough to get you in the ACC title game. And if you win the ACC title game, you're in the playoffs no matter what. And I think I'm picking Clemson to win the ACC. There's not really another team in the ACC because Miami's going to take a step back without Cam Ward. SMU, I think, takes a step back now that everybody's going to be taking them seriously. Florida State, I don't think, is at the level where they need to be yet. North Carolina, I don't think, is at the level they need to be yet. Georgia Tech, they're stuck in neutral. Louisville is going to take a step back. So the ACC is Clemson's to lose. If Clemson doesn't win the ACC this year, it's because it's of themselves, not because of how tough the ACC is. But anyway, that's my prediction for the Clemson Tigers. I'm going to try by sometime at the end of this weekend to get one on the NFL channel for the Houston Texans. The next college one, I'm going to try to get it done by Monday. If not, you're going to have to wait until next weekend to get it. But the next college football one, we're going to stick with the theme of the Tigers. And the next preview and prediction video here on the Roll Tide 99 channel will be the LSU Tigers. Until then, this is Roll Tide 99. I'll see you later.